Hi, this is Suzanne from Belle's Backyard. This past weekend we were up in North Carolina visiting our son and daughter-in-law and ran into a farmer's market. We found these great tomatoes, so today's video we're going to be showing you how to can crushed tomatoes. Video, we're going to be canning 14 quarts of crushed tomatoes, so be sure to have them cleaned and sterilized. Also, be sure to have your tools all laid out, and the tools that we use will be located in the link below. The first thing you're going to need to do is blanch your tomatoes. You're going to need a pot of boiling water to blanch them, a pot of ice cold water with ice in it, and then you're going to need a pot to be cooking your tomatoes. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is get your tomatoes ready for blanching. And that's going to be simple to do. You're just going to take your tomato, wash it off, and then cut a single X in the middle of it on top. There you go, all it is to it. And then we're going to do 6 of those and just set them aside. It doesn't have to be that deep. I probably did it a little bit too deep on that first one. To blanch the tomatoes, we're just going to take them and sit them in the boiling water. And we're going to leave them in here for about 1 minute, just until we start seeing the skin separate from the tomato. We'll let it sit there for a minute or so. Okay, now we're going to take them out of the boiling water. Transfer them into the ice bath. And let it sit there for about 30 seconds or so. And that should be stopping the cooking process, so then we're going to take it and put them over here in another pot to be peeled. And then we'll start this process over again with our next 6 tomatoes. Okay, to peel the tomato, all you have to do is just grab where you cut the skin, peel it back, and it should come off fairly easy. And that's all there is to it. After you skin the tomatoes, next you want to just quarter them. And how you're going to do that, you're going to grab it, cut the top off, and be sure to curl your fingers back because the tomatoes can be slippery. And then you're just going to quarter them. And after you get them all done, you can come back and trim off some of the pieces like that. Okay, now that we have our tomatoes quartered, we're going to take them, put them into the pot over here. We have our stove turned on, and you can adjust it. I have mine put on somewhere in the medium, but you can adjust it. And let me just see if I can just slide them all in here. So we put them all in there, and then we're just going to let that come to a boil and then keep stirring them, and all the juices will come out. And so we will keep adding to that as we slice and we peel the tomatoes. Okay, now that we have this boiling over here, we're ready to add our second group of 6 tomatoes. So we're going to just take this and slide it right in. And we're losing some along the way. Right, get those stirred and get those to boiling again. And then, as you can see, we kind of have an assembly line going. We blanch, and then we peel, and then we quarter them and then put them in the to start cooking. Now that we've boiled down 25 pounds of tomatoes, we're getting ready to put them into the jars. The jars have been heated and sanitized. And we're going to fill them to a 1/2 inch headspace. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and remove the air bubbles with the debubbler. Now the debubbler is the little green thingy on the stick. That's the fancy term for it. To cut back on the acidity of the tomatoes, we're going to take 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and add to each one. Okay, the last thing that we do before we put the lids on, we want to make sure that we wipe the edges with our white vinegar. Because as you can see, you have a lot of tomato there, and if you don't get it really clean, then you will not get a good seal. So just tape it and wipe the edges really good. Now that we wiped our edges off with the white vinegar, we're going to put on our lids. Now make sure you're using the magnet stick so that your fingers are not touching the edges and you don't run a chance of contaminating anything. And next we just put on the rings. And these should go to be about finger tight. And as I mentioned, the jars are very hot, so you might want to get something to hold the jars. Now we put them into the pressure canner. And you can put 7 cans in, and you just got to make sure they're not touching each other or the edge. Now that we have the 7 jars in there, we've put the lid on there, we've tightened all the screws on here to make sure they're good. And then we're going to let this cook until it starts getting some steam out, and we'll let it steam for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to put the weight, our 5-pound weight on there. Let it get up to, I'm sorry, I said 5-pound weight, I meant 10-pound weight. Then we're going to let this get up to 10 pounds and cook it 10 pounds for about 15 minutes. Now that it's been 15 minutes, we're going to turn off the heat and release the pressure. Do not do this barehanded. And we're going to let that steam out for a few minutes until your gauge comes down all the way to 0. Okay, so we've got them, and we're taking them out of the pressure canner and sitting them up on the countertop, and we'll leave them sitting up there for about 24 hours and giving them a chance to set and for the pressure to kind of equalize in there. And you'll start hearing the popping of the cans as well after they sit there for a little while. and that is completely normal. They look beautiful. So I'm Suzanne with Belle's Backyard. Thank you for joining us as we can these tomatoes. And if you like what we did, make sure you click below on the like, or make sure you subscribe on the button as well. So if you have any suggestions, make sure that you leave us a note, or if you have anything you'd like to see us do, make sure you include that as well. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Belle's Backyard.